From Katrina Law having an absolutely explosive first impression on NCIS, to her quickly getting back on her feet and helping with the investigation, here are some of Katrina's character, Jessica Knight's, most badass moments on NCIS. For starters, it's the absolutely epic way Katrina made her entrance on the show. Katrina made her first appearance on NCIS in Season 18, Episode 15. And let's just say, people were already impressed with her. But Knight had her work cut out for her, as she had to calm down a hostage situation. Turns out, things got pretty heated between the couple, with the boyfriend straight up threatening to kill his partner. What's worse, she was actually pregnant. But here comes Jessica, along with her team. After going at it for an entire hour, trying to get the guy to calm down, she finally learned that the girlfriend was pregnant, and cleverly used that knowledge to get him to lower his guard. In the end, Knight was able to get the hostage to run out of the house safely, successfully managing to disarm the situation. But hold on, cause like any good NCIS episode, there's a twist. Turns out, as soon as the hostage ran out, the entire house blew up. Like it straight up turned into a fireball. And what happened to Jessica? Well, she was the only survivor. Now, I don't know about you, but when your first appearance on a show is literally you tackling a hostage situation and then surviving an explosion, you're bound to become one of the coolest characters on the show. And Knight didn't even stop after doing this, because she joined the team to learn more about what happened to her squad. You could almost say she joined the series with a bang. Though not everyone felt that way, because some fans felt like the character was a bit obnoxious at first. Fans felt like her surviving the explosion miraculously felt a bit off, you know? I mean, she was in the house just like everyone else, so it feels like bad writing to only have her survive with everyone else dead. Now, this next part can be seen as both badass and annoying depending on who you ask. Jessica is hospitalized as a result of the explosion. But guess what? She checks herself out and then joins the NCIS investigation that follows. Now, that makes her sound like an absolute boss lady, but you can't really join an investigation like that, especially if you're one of the victims. Some fans felt like the writers were just trying way too hard to insert her character into the show. Plus, it's not like the story itself was something that fresh, since a fan mentioned that stuff like this has already been done a lot in NCIS. You know, the whole shtick with how a military equipment or software isn't working properly and the person who discovers the flaw gets murdered by the company, that tired old trope. And get this, some folks even felt like she ruined the episode. Now, I don't know about you, but that scene of her surviving the explosion was definitely badass. So, say what you will about the character, but that's one thing you definitely can't take away from her, especially because Katrina continued to follow it up with even more of all that later on in Season 19. Turns out, Law didn't let the initial wave of hate that fans gave to her get her down. She became a prominent character in NCIS with its 19th season, despite being a recurring one just a season before. This meant that not only did she get more time to spend with the cast, which resulted in her developing a few relations and bonds with them, but it also meant that the writers got more opportunities to showcase just how epic of a character Jessica Knight really is. And this time, they managed to do it right, because there weren't any bombs that magically only led to her being the survivor. In episode 13 of Season 19, fans were treated to an absolutely amazing action sequence, courtesy of none other than Katrina herself. So, in this episode, when the perpetrator makes a run for it, he's caught out in the street by the one and only Jessica Knight. The guy tried tackling Jessica down, which led to her dropping her gun. And this is where he makes a big mistake. He thinks that Knight is defenseless just because she doesn't have her gun. Oh, but don't worry, within just seconds, Jessica proved to him just how painfully wrong he was, because she straight up breaks a broom and turns it into a weapon. Now, we could have gotten some epic hand-to-hand combat here, but the bad guy in this case pulled out a knife. So, I mean, it's definitely fair for Knight to also be equipped, even if it's just with a broken broom. And trust me when I say, that's enough by itself, because she pulled out the perfect moves to keep the guy in his place. Within a few moments, not only was she able to get him to fall face first towards the ground, but she also gave him a good taste of round 2, when he foolishly decided to get back up and keep fighting. Seriously, what's wrong with this guy? Did he not know who he was up against? Anyway, the backup arrived guns blazing, but they were really just standing there surprised at how well Jessica neutralized the whole situation. The guy she was fighting against was eventually forced to put his hands up in the air as he's backed into a corner with no knife or other weapon anywhere to be seen. Now that's how you handle one of these goons. In the end, he even seems like he was just completely done with it, because he practically begged them to just cuff him and get it over with. When you're literally getting criminals to ask you to take them to prison, you know you've become a grade A certified badass. And it was after scenes like this that fans started to take the character side a lot more often. In fact, she's kind of becoming a fan favorite for a ton of NCIS viewers. One Reddit user even said that they weren't sure why Jessica Knight was getting so much hate at first. I mean, the character is downright amazing to watch, and Katrina, the actress that portrays her, is just as talented. So, what's the deal? Well, another user gave their whole take on the situation, and it turns out it really just comes down to fans not being too accepting of change. The user mentioned that people tend to hate all characters that are new, which is why they weren't as keen on her joining the cast and becoming one of its core members. But after seeing just how amazing of an actress Katrina Law is, and are definitely warming up to her now, especially because the writers have done a good job at gelling her with the rest of the crew and really making her feel like she's a part of the team. Fans just love the banter she's got with Torres, and she brings a level of optimism to the team that honestly has been lacking for a while. One fan even said that they love what the writers are doing with Knight right now and hopes that they don't ultimately decide to change her character. And honestly, you've got to give huge props to Katrina for playing the character the way she does. For instance, even in one of her earlier seasons from season 18, she just had a kind of charisma. You know, something that you see from leading stars. Like, do y'all remember the scene from her introduction episode when she appears at Gibbs's desk after being cleared from the hospital? Instead of trying to explain how she's there to anyone, she just walked up like a badass and told the rest of the team to give her the rundown. The rest of their faces were absolutely hilarious. It's like they couldn't even comprehend just what it was that they were seeing. She quickly made herself at home, even though the rest of the team was still understandably confused by everything. And to fit right in, Law started talking about how she was struggling with her sock being in a weird position in her shoe. Like she didn't just get discharged from the hospital after suffering an explosion. But hey, when you're as much of a badass as she is, stuff like that is the least of your worries, right? And when she got asked why she wasn't taking time off, she reminded the team that was what the director told her to do, not what she really planned on doing. And it wasn't just a thing about her trying too hard to be cool either. Turns out, the reason she was pushing so hard to know the truth was because Knight really cared about her team. And she reminded the rest of her crew that they do the same thing for one another. Hey, she's definitely not wrong there, is she? So, from her quickly getting back on her feet and helping with the investigation, to Jessica Knight having an absolutely explosive first impression on the series, those were some of Katrina Law's character Jessica's most badass moments on NCIS.